ergonomic and new does not always equal easier to use. Sometimes old and busted is easier to use than new hotness. Do you catch my drift?
These are the voyages of the starship Dingwall. Her indefinitely long mission. I don't know. It's scratched. It's scratched too much. I can't read it.
Star Trek Prodigy is back. It's been a week-long waiting. Felt like it's been forever because I'm genuinely looking forward to these episodes. I couldn't wait for this episode to come out. Previews looked amazing. And guess what? The episode wasn't amazing, but it was far from bad. This is All the World's a Stage. This is going to be a hard review for me. It's going to be hard to keep this objective and sensible. I was floored by this episode when I first saw it. On repeat viewings, sober second thought, I can't in good conscience give the review score that I had originally intended. This episode got a little bit worse on repeat viewings, but still super fun. What's going on with All the World's a Stage? Fun episode. Sounds great, looks great. And it's clearly a can't miss. This isn't a skipper. Our last episode of Prodigy could have been a skipper. This one, under no circumstances, I think. Very self-referential. That can be a problem. Prodigy has gotten away now with it twice. This episode and the episode Kobayashi. One more and I might not be able to tolerate it. In fact, there's some things in this episode that beggar belief for me, and I will get into it. Every time you have self-reference to the greater universe of Star Trek in an episode, and it's important to the plot specifically, you make the universe smaller. Self-reference is a retreat into the comfortable in the mind, and it's physically a retreat inward in the context of the show. Okay? You reference yourself over and over and over again. The audience will get the impression that this universe is actually not as big as it could be. That's a problem. It's always been a problem with Star Trek. At least it's not at the level of Lower Decks, where it's just a rapid-fire machine gun blasting references at you to the point where it's just annoying. This episode, for me, is an indulgence. Maybe it's a guilty pleasure, but this is a guilty pleasure with a lot of heart, a lot of meaning, and a big moral, a big, fat, juicy moral for you to chew on, not a morsel. So, with that all cleared up, let's dive into All the World's a Stage. Is All the World a Stage? Is your world a stage? You remember last episode where Sleeping Borg lie? We can't bring the ship back to Starfleet because of the living construct. Okay. The least we can do is try to help people. The protostar is one of two things. It's either a tool for helping people or a tool for endless destruction. So we're going to pick the first one. We receive a distress signal. Now, you can receive distress signals from uncontacted, not warp-capable planets. It's happened before. So, don't respond, but go to the planet and see what's up. Okay? It's happened before. TNG episode, what was it? Pen Pals? Something like that. Data was receiving distress calls from an underdeveloped planet. Communication does not denote technological advancement such that first contact is possible. So I will get that out of the way. The protostar arrives at the planet from where the distress call originated. However, there's a strange subspace distortion covering the planet, so we can't look, but we dangerously land there anyway, via transporter, of course. And my mind was aflutter with strange ideas of what was going on here. Subspace distortion around the planet, and we beam down, and the beaming takes a little bit longer than usual. Uh-oh. That's always a bad sign. It's very bad when something weird happens with the beaming. Red flags going off in my mind. Red alert, if you will. Rok-tahk stays behind to look after Murph. Murph is sick. We don't know what that's about yet. We're greeted by two, what amounts to, Star Trek cosplayers. I know, crazy, right? I ain't never seen a Star Trek cosplayer in my life. But they're here, and they're real, and they're in this episode. And a obviously pre-contacted race. I thought you were supposed to avoid Starfleet. Janeway, why is Starfleet here? Hello, I am James T. This is Sulu. And these guys, they're playing Starfleet. Hey guys, want to get together and play Starfleet? No problem, except we call it Starflight. You guys ever play that game when you were kids where you whisper something in someone's ear, and then it goes all the way around the circle of whispers, and then when it comes back to you, it sounds totally different? That's what happened here. Look up Cargo Cult for more information. I think you'll get the picture. Very funny idea for a Star Trek episode. Not totally unique. If you've seen the movie Galaxy Quest, or maybe a piece of the action, or maybe even the Royale from TNG, you'll get the picture. What happened was, turn this review off and watch the episode. I'm about to spoil it. A shuttle from the Enterprise carrying Ensign Garivik, I believe was the son of Kirk's former captain on the Farragut, Captain Garivik. We find out what happened to him. He had a heroic and meaningful end. Something was afflicting this planet. He flew the shuttlecraft down, got lost in some way, shuttle damaged, told the people not to go near the shuttle because of radiation leakage, and he became a messianic figure for these people. And from inside the shuttle, it must have been, that recordings of the bridge were present, the very basics of Constitution class era starship control are present, because our characters are practicing Starfleet combat, practicing how to use Starfleet console controls, and they have a basic working knowledge of the bridge members of the Starship Enterprise, circa TOS. Stretches my belief a little bit. These concepts are complicated for an uncontacted group of people. It's complicated for me, let alone these people. But I don't think it ever gets to the point of, like, Discovery Season 2, Kelpians learning to fly around starships in a few episodes after having farmed kelp for millennia. Sulu, not Sulu. I just called him Sulu. Saru, barred from that because he had been exposed to Starfleet for a long time. It never gets to that level. However, it does beg your belief in a few other areas that I will get to. Welcome to New Enterprise! And they've built a city, like a walled city, that looks like the Enterprise. You will note, however, that the nacelles look a lot like nacelles from the Kelvin timeline. Very, very curious. I don't know, was there just too many cooks in the kitchen? The right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing, and somebody in charge of designing that just threw together the Kelvin style kind of nacelles? Or if this meant something. Does it mean something? we walk into this gigantic building, and they put on a play for our characters, that being Jankum, Dal, Gwyn, Zero. And this play is acting out the mythological origin story of their people, right? Everybody on the bridge is a caricature of somebody we knew from the Enterprise. Scotty, Sulu, Kirk, Spock. Highly illogical. Note the hand. They didn't get it quite right, which is curious, because did these logs degrade? Did they get bit rot? Surely you can see a video of Spock doing this. Oh well, it's funny. Maybe I should stop sweating the small things and just learn to have fun with this one, because this episode is clearly indulgent. It's clearly fun, and like I said before, it hammers home the moral message and the theme. Number one, most important thing. So I'm going to overlook a lot in this. Things that would normally keep this episode from being good and convert it into bad are instead keeping it from being perfect and converting it into being great. As a little a teaser for what kind of score this is going to get in the end. We watched this play. Won't somebody go down to the planet and save these people from whatever it was? It's not important, and I don't think it's really explained in the episode. The original problem that befell this planet. Ensign comes down. He's just called Ensign. We know what Ensign is. They don't, so his name is Ensign, right? They send down good old Ensign Garevik. We know what happened to him now. And tragically, he dies. But in his last breath, tells them Starflight will return and defeat the evil Gallows. Gallows, what's that? We'll find out in a minute. A particularly astute viewer could have maybe guessed this by the way the play looked. When they were showing the Gallows in the play, they showed two glowing lights. What's that, right? I know. Do you know? Did you watch this? We need to find out what the Gallows is. We can't let this go on. We're inheriting the fault of Starfleet for ourselves. It's one thing to accept the successes of Starfleet. It's another thing to, without question, inherit the problems of Starfleet and take it upon yourself to fix it. We've become Starfleet in this episode. The uniforms look great. We got great control of the ship. We've gone from confused and stumbling to heroic and competent, I would say. I would venture to say competence, although we have Janeway to help. I wonder how soon we can get rid of hologram Janeway. I think we could be close. Do they need her anymore? Albeit, the Protostar is probably pretty intuitive with its controls. Ergonomic, if you will. However, you'll note, in your lifetime, that ergonomic and new does not always equal easier to use. Sometimes, old and busted is easier to use than new hotness. Do you catch my drift? And we'll see how that plays into this episode later. Dal comes down with splotchy sickness on his hand. He has black splotches all over his body. Unfortunately, Dr. Bones, whatever they call him, the person who was clearly supposed to be McCoy, our knowledge is clearly lacking. We don't have the technology that you do. But even without the ship, can't you believe? Do you believe? People watching here, without the technology, without the know-how, and without the ship, do you still believe? He points at my uniform on the wall. Amazing. Beautiful moment. Just as Dal is starting not to believe, Dal is going through what I believe is known as the Dunning-Kruger effect in real time, and we're seeing this happen. It's so cool. Dal goes from not understanding anything and having no confidence to understanding a little bit, getting a lot of confidence, and then understanding more and losing a lot of confidence. You see, you go over the hump in knowledge and you realize just how much you don't know. At the beginning, no competence. You don't know what's going on. Hey, I'm a dummy. Treat me like I'm a dummy. I don't know what's going on here. You get a little bit more knowledge, and now you're prideful because you've just learned so much. I'm so much smarter than I was before, and you're right. However, once you get a little bit smarter, you start to get a taste of the unknown, and you realize how much there is to know that you either don't know or can't know. And then you go into the valley of despair, which is what Dal is going into this episode with. And now he's sick. Sick in the mind, sick in the body. How can we help Dal? We need to go to the gallows, right? We need to find out the source of this problem. It's our problem now. We're Starfleet. This problem belongs to us, and we're going to fix it. Even though it's been over 100 years since we were here last time. Starfleet has returned. Their gods have returned. Imagine the joyous day, the red letter day that this would be. I would invite you to venture in your mind the feeling you would have for prophecies coming true and to witness a miracle with your own eyes. That's what these people would be seeing. Okay? Just try to imagine it that way. These people, the Enterprisians, who are clearly us. They're meant to be us. They're cosplayers. They're fans. They're the audience. And in many ways, what they say is aimed at us as well. Because they are speaking in a way that reaffirms their prophecy. When the Doctor asks Dal if he believes, he's asking the audience if we believe. Can you be Starfleet without the ship? They can be Starfleet in the heart. But our crew can be Starfleet in the body. Because they have the ship. The Enterprisians of this world do not. Somewhere the two need to meet. We need to complete the whole. The union of opposites. This will one day, in Prodigy, create the true Starfleet crew that we need. And it's so wonderful seeing this transformation occur. And it's so new, and it's so fresh, and so unique. Meanwhile, Gwyn, rok-tahk, who was beamed down from the ship, leaving Murph in the care of Janeway, and Jank and Pog, who was very funny in this episode, by the way, engage in an act of pure heroism to run onto this shuttle. The Gallows is a shuttle. 2 glowing lights. It's a Class F shuttlecraft from the Enterprise. The Galileo. The Galileo's here, looking just as it should. The glowing eyes being the Bessarad ram scoops. It's leaking plasma. I'm going to go on a detour here. The plasma leak from the starboard nacelle, I think it was on the right. Its end cap is leaking plasma. Now, I always thought that plasma was not a stable liquid in an M-type atmosphere. Plasma, warp plasma, as it were, is a highly energetic compound that does not readily exist as a liquid and needs to be pressurized and or in an electrified state in order to be contained. It needs containment, okay? And it seems to me that its reaction with the dilithium cave, which the shuttle is enclosed in, should not create a disease such that an antidote will fix it. I don't know anything about medicine, but antidote to me says biological. It feels like this is spreading through contact, like the pathogen, the vector of this disease does not seem in line with the effect you would get from warp plasma leak reacting to dilithium. It feels to me like this should be strictly radiation sickness based and very, very transmissible through contact with radiated particles and through distance, because your radiation would be linearly proportional to the distance from like inversely linearly proportional to the distance from the shuttle from the place that's emitting the radiation. Am I wrong? It seems to me like instead of a biological problem here, this would be a problem better served by a chemist observing the bizarre radioactive reaction between the warp plasma and the dilithium around it. It seems like this would be transmuting the elements in the environment down the list, creating all kinds of horrific isotopes, and it feels like the way this was written, it felt like you can get infected by it or something. It was very, something about it was very strange. It should have been coolant. I would have accepted coolant. Maybe something happened where warp coil coolant, which was superheated hydrogen, I believe, was left in the nacelle and reduced to a liquid state after it combined with ambient particles, and then carried radiation out that way from the leaking warp core. Although a warp core reaction is very clean, again, it's a matter to antimatter reaction, and I think you may get gamma radiation. Other than that, it's a very clean reaction. But the radiation that you do get does transmute surrounding elements into different elements, and it may have created a radioactive isotope of those elements. None of this should have been written into the episode. It would not have helped it at all. It's just something I kept thinking about. One of those things that just lives rent-free in your mind. Warp plasma, is it really a liquid like that? Plasma is a phase of matter. Plasma is not like the liquid in your blood, which I believe can be in a liquid state in the atmosphere. This plasma is like superheated it's like, how do I explain this? It's like lightning, okay? In layman's terms, it's a little bit more like lightning than it is like water, which is what we see in this episode. Am I wrong? Does anybody here know anything about medicine or anything like that? Any advanced Starfleet warp field engineers that can tell me about how this works in here? I'm not a warp engineer. I'm only a field engineer. Not field in space, but field in power plant operations. Power plant being the warp core. Powerhouse maintenance, instrumentation, HVAC, stuff like that. I don't know what's going on with the warp plasma exactly, but I only know what I know. And if anybody in the comments knows better than me, feel free to tell me. But to me, when you say warp plasma, I think exotic, violent compound, not liquid. Here's where the episode starts to get a little confusing. Our idea is to fix the shuttle. The shuttle has a duotronic comm relay. True, our computers are duotronic. Why did Jankum go onto the ship, bolstered by his grapple claw, as the ship was about to fall into the lake of, what is it, plasma? I don't know. About to fall into the good old lake of fire. We go into the shuttle to call Janeway. We need to get beamed out of here. Our dinky little communicators can't penetrate this interference. This is likely the cause of the subspace interference blanketing the planet. I can buy that. Warp cores being what they are. And then we just get transported out. We all pile into the shuttle as it's falling. We get out of the shuttle, and the shuttle just falls in where it was going to fall anyway. Mind you, we happened to arrive just at the moment before the shuttle was going to fall anyway. It had been slowly falling into this crevasse for over 100 years. We happened to arrive at the right time, and then it just fell. So why? It felt like to me the shuttle just did what it was going to do anyway. So unfortunately it ends up being one of those plots that didn't need our characters to do anything, which I always hate. A plot that was going to resolve itself regardless. So in the grand scheme of things, rendering the episode pointless plot-wise, why didn't we just... It seemed like at no point we were trying to not get it to fall. I think, did our characters know that what was going to happen when it fell? They should have wrote this so that if the shuttle fell entirely into that lake, as it were, it would cause an explosion that would destroy the village of the natives here. That would be better. And then the protostar would have to find a way to tractor beam the shuttle out of the volcano. So that didn't happen with our crew inside it. I think that would be a little bit more enticing and a little bit more logical, and give a reason for why we cannot allow the shuttle to fall in. Because as it stands right now, what we have is a shuttle teetering on the edge of a cliff that just fell into the cliff. It was going to of its own accord anyway. And as long as you stayed away from it, you were fine. And now it fell down over the cliff, destroying itself, removing the problem. And our characters didn't really need to be there. The sum total of the episode, if you look at it only plot-wise, that's what you're getting. So it's kind of... It needed a few more passes in the writer's room, but it did not otherwise infringe egregiously on a really good episode, I think. The protostar needs to transport our characters out of this dire situation. There's too much interference. What do? We need to bring the protostar down out of orbit and fly it over this volcano. I can't do it alone. Well, I'm pretty sure Hologram Janeway could have did it alone. But again, we need a reason to bring these people onto the ship. A lot of the stuff in this episode does not occur with logic in mind. It occurs for what we need to have happen to get something fun to occur on screen. So it's kind of a black mark against it. We need to take these age-old TOS era Enterprisians onto the protostar and have them operate the controls. But we do it in the coolest way possible. We actually do something I've been thinking about for years now. A ship that has holo consoles. We can have a holo Janeway. Let's have a holo console. So we actually morph the bridge into looking like something I'm a little bit more used to. Guys, can we just leave it like that? Now this I can work with. The old Enterprisians beamed up to the protostar can now fly the ship. Would you allow these people to fly your starship for you? If I was Dal, I think I'd be at the helm, but you do you, buddy. We fly the protostar down close enough to beam our friends out of the danger they're in with the help of the Enterprisians, landing heroically in front of the new Enterprise. The large shantytown building that they constructed to look like the Enterprise. Protostar lands in front of it. Again, new hotness, old and busted. Cargo bay door opens. And our friends come out unscathed. And we stand there proud, knowing that our white lie of copying the Enterprise, living someone else's truth, paid off in the end. We were right. Starflight did come back. And I'll be damned if I didn't start to get a little tear in my eye when I saw that happening. The thought of the cosplayers finally being right. You know, it's an interesting concept. And we needed Prodigy to do it. And by God, they did it. We got everybody out safely. We got back up to the ship. Second contact is a little fuzzy. We're in a legal gray area. But it's our problem. Together. We leave the Enterprisians behind and realize way back when, in the beginning of this episode, when Murph was sick, what that was about. Murph is in a cocoon now. Murph is in a metamorphosis, if you will. Is that the title of the next episode? I can't remember. I know they did reveal the episode titles beforehand. An intriguing ending to what ended up being a fulfilling and thematically dense A-plot. But our B-plot, sprinkled here and there, leaves a lot to be desired. Maybe I'm wrong for wanting more real Janeway and more U.S.S. Dauntless in a show that is supposed to be about the Protostar and our characters, but I felt the B-plot is a continuation of last episode's B-plot, which is a continuation of the B-plot before that. Janeway is hot on the tail of whoever has stole the Protostar, having the Diviner in sickbay. We are going at a snail's pace. It's going to start feeling a little bit fakey fake if our characters are moving along at warp speed and real Janeway on the Dauntless is moving at impulse. It makes them look kind of stupid. It makes them look a little bit dense. We find the Diviner. He's still in sickbay. We need to figure out what's going on. We got him awake. His brain's broke. The intrusion, the atrocities, my ship. They stole my ship. They do realize that Burnus Frex, that character from the episode Asylum, good episode, did launch his escape pod. He did survive, and he was picked up by an unknown alien ship that we're going to have to chase now to get Frex back. There's your B-plot. The Diviner knows something that our characters don't. We don't know what it is. We know someone has stolen the Protostar. And number two, that individual from Asylum. He's safe, but we need to find him. There you go. There's your B-plot. Let's speed it up a little bit, okay? With the B-plot, it's getting a little bit harebrained. Doesn't hurt the episode. For me, does not injure the episode in any serious way. Because we learned that you don't need the ship to be Starfleet. Okay? Do you believe? You don't have the technology. You don't have the know-how. But if you have the heart, isn't that all you need? If you have faith of the heart? With that out of the way, a few things seem curious to me with regards to the second and third viewing of this episode. The Enterpriseians on the surface of this planet, the people who have created a whole mythos for their people around the shuttlecraft, around Ensign Garvik, around the Enterprise. Ensign Garvik left behind the damaged shuttle, said don't go near it, don't go near the Galileo. That becomes the Gallows. Surely Garvik must have taken with him logs, historical documents from the shuttle. Taken them on little data chips, probably. Somehow showed this to the natives. And they knew not to go near the shuttlecraft. But, I mean, is there not an image of a Class F shuttlecraft in the logs? Has nobody in over 100 years gotten close enough to the Gallows to see that it was clearly just a shuttlecraft? Has that not happened once? I mean, we have display screens to show video to people. There's a montage of these people looking at a video screen and looking at the Enterprise bridge. Do they not have like a video simulation of what happened to the shuttlecraft, proving scientifically that it was not a monster? It's just something about it. It just seems weird to me. Like, the shuttle, I mean, was there for 100 years. Just as we arrived, it was about to fall anyway. and our characters are natives of this planet did not deduce that it was a shuttle, even though they probably had lots of images of shuttles, and probably had some kind of idea that shuttles could be dangerous. Like, nobody got close enough. I don't know. And on top of that, it's self-referential again. It's in a loop. We're stuck in a Mobius loop. For what reason was it a Constitution-class ship? For what reason was it the Enterprise? It could have been any other ship, right? But because this episode is conscious of its audience in a way that affects the plot, it had to be the Enterprise. Works for me, but won't do anything for someone who isn't familiar with it. So what it does is creating a less universally strong episode. So I have to bear that in mind. Like I said earlier, all these problems, it only converts a perfect episode into a great one. Or good, perhaps. Musically, the Prodigy theme hits exactly where it's supposed to. It hits me in the feels. It hits me. I think the composers did a fantastic job. I think it hits all the emotional points it's supposed to. And when we meet our characters, James T. and Sulu, named after you-know-who, it does play this kind of interesting musical invention that sounds like TOS but isn't. It's just kind of this wonky off TOS. Very cute. Musically, we're hitting all the right buttons. Thematically, it's beautiful. Dal wakes up from his coma that he went into after he received Zero's antidote, somehow made from the warp plasma and the dilithium crystals. I don't know. It's a little bit hand wavy. He wakes up saying, "I don't know anything." Dreams are like a window into your soul, into your innermost thoughts, fears, and desires. Dal wakes up half in a dream, the inertia from his dream state, or was it a nightmare? I don't know anything. We're on a ship that we don't really know anything about. We're on the protostar. It's not ours. The characters on this planet, they don't know anything either. But we come together anyway. That's what this episode means. This episode is about the fans. It is about the dedicated cosplayers, I think. And it's about faith of the heart. And for me, that's really important. Visually, it looks really cool seeing the fake Enterprise that these people built. Protostar flying around looks freaking awesome. The liquid effects on the surface inside this volcano, in the plasma pool, look really cool. The shuttlecraft look amazing. It looked exactly correct. The bridge, when the holoconsole shows up, looks just right. It looks just like TOS. It's respectful of what came before, while totally looking sleek and new at the same time. Our characters are a little retro, aren't they? I think they even got the colors wrong. Our colors for our uniforms on the planet, are like blue, red, and green. Here's a hint. Everybody on the set of TOS agreed that the command uniform was green. But when it came through on television, because of technical you-know-what, having to do with early color televisions, the command uniform looked yellow. Or gold, if you will. Was this a subtle hint about that? Because it appears that command was green in this episode? Interestingly, their uniforms are comprised of patchwork sewn together pieces, but yet they all look very similar. They're all patched together almost the exact same way. Like they have this little asymmetrical bit on the end of their uniform that looks a little bit weird. Looks a little bit like the asymmetrical piece on the Discovery Season 3 uniforms, to be honest. So cool. So good. Little derivative. Go watch Galaxy Quest. Otherwise, an episode that I'm confident in calling beautiful. This was Star Trek Prodigy, episode 13. All the World's a Stage. I guess it literally was in this episode. And this episode is getting a 6.5 out of 10. Doesn't exactly hit the level of, say, Kobayashi or Moral Star, but it's so close. If we had come up with a good reason for why we need to fix the shuttlecraft or get it out of the volcano, and we spent a little bit more time explaining how it was that Garavik was able to teach these people these things with only what he had in the shuttle, and make it a little bit more clear, we could have had a 7. But for these reasons, I'm going to have to go with a 6.5. For my grading scale, that's still fantastic. You should know that by now. This episode's a keeper, not a skipper. All the world's a stage. All of this review is a YouTube video. Are you going to comment? Are you going to like? I don't know. But I'm Lieutenant Mark, and I'm going to see you next week for when Prodigy returns, for what I'm sure is going to be a pretty good episode as well. We're on a roll here. See you later.